satisfied with my sex life. Agreeers, step forward. I have abused my body. Will the agreeers step forward?
Hold up. Let me go
Prompt
back.
is, I am satisfied with my sex life.
Look right
Agreeers, step forward.
Bring it down some more.
Hey there, it's the Superstar. Have you ever felt the challenge to trying to grow your account? It's kind of like climbing a mountain with a backpack full of rocks, right?
I have abused my body. Will the agreeers step forward?
I'll start by saying I've abused my body many times. Being a bodybuilder, a professional bodybuilder, I've abused steroids, did that for over 10 years. I don't think you can get to the level that you have to get to be at to be a professional bodybuilder while being natural. And so absolutely, and I would say that somebody trying to abuse steroids to get that muscle, to get that look is just as unhealthy as somebody who's obese. So I don't try to be a hypocrite. I say I've done these poor choices. I'm 48 now, I don't do steroids anymore. And so I recognize that what I did in the past was bad, probably took years off my life. And so I would say to people who are overweight, why don't you do the same thing? And if you're not, then do you really care about your health? Because if you do, you would stop doing the things that are leading to being morbidly obese.
But then to your own argument, you spent 10 years doing something you knew was inherently unhealthy.
Correct.
But then you're gonna turn around and tell people that they should just wake up. But
yes, exactly. Like people should have told me, Greg, why do you keep doing this to yourself? You do not recognize what's going to happen? And if we call it shaming, why are you abusing steroids, Greg? Think of it. Think of the years you're taking off your life. Maybe I would have waited.
But the power was in your own awakening, right? The power right there was in your own awakening to realize within yourself that you were doing something negative and then you made the change for it, right? And that change is now consistent. That change is now something that you can give a testimony about and help other people change their ways or persuade people to just not do it at all, right?
But building on what you said, what was the moment, where the perspective shifted?
Well, I got old enough and realized I can't get any better at this. I can keep taking more and more drugs and try to sustain this, but I said, it's not worth it anymore. So I had to completely change my mind around what I was doing, which was being judged on my appearance. And remember, I make money on how I look. And so that's going to have a huge impact on me. And I had to say, I need to get my dopamine, my self-worth from something else. So I quit doing all the bodybuilding competitions. And I said, I'm going to start riding bikes. I'm going to learn Spanish. I'm going to do something else where I can feel good about myself. And it's hard. Like, look at this guy, 300 pounds of muscle. 20 years from now, is he going to want to still be this size? He might look back and say, I maybe regret certain things. And I think if somebody's overweight, they're going to think the same things. Like if you're 400, 500, 600 pounds, you're going to think, is it worth doing this? Is it worth eating all the time? It's tough.
I think this is the first actual middle ground I think we're finding, which is really great because it's true. I mean, I've been harmful to myself on both sides of the spectrum. There were times I was taking, 20 to 30 diet pills and laxatives a day, eating less than 400 calories a day, working out nonstop.
You see, but I thought he exercised all the time.
Eating way too much, smoking way too much, drinking way too much, and abusing my body in the other way. I think we all come to the realization of what we're doing is harmful in different ways at different times. Like it took you 10 years to realize that was harmful. My thing is sometimes it takes people who might be overweight or, at that high tier, that 500, 600 pounds, to realize that it's harmful for them. And maybe in their life, they don't feel like it's harmful. And they are happy. There are people, believe it or not, legitimately happy in certain
ignorance
sizes and shapes.
Is bliss. I was happy at the moment. I felt like it was.
But why is there bliss an issue?
Ignorance is bliss, but you could die before you wake up.
You could have done the same thing taking steroids. That's
exactly. I could have died doing what I did, and so is it not my responsibility to tell people, don't copy me, and so it would not be somebody who's,
and I don't think there's
500
anything wrong
pounds
with that.
to do the same thing.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Even when you said before, you're like, well, I wish someone had shamed me saying, what are you going to do? You're going to kill yourself. That's not shaming to me. To me, that is compassionate and looking out for somebody. It's when you take it to the other level where you start insulting them, degrading them, making them feel like shit.
As men, we insult each other and shame each other, but it's as a friend. Like, this is what guys do. Girls don't do it. They all suck up to each other. You're all tens. Guys are like, look at your gut, look at your belly.
We gotta stop saying what girls do.
I know, that's
what. No, it's important to.
I'm telling you what they do.
The masculine from the feminine, because it's guys talking here, and I think it's important to distinguish when something is feminine to say, well, we don't adhere to that over here.
Yeah, but there's been no shortage of generalizations on women in this episode so far, and I'm really, really curious about your answer to this prompt regarding self-abuse, bodily abuse.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lifetime natural. I've never taken a drug before in my life. However, I was an athlete in college, and obviously when you're a Division I athlete, you're training 2 to 3 times a day. It was very, very intensive. I would train through injuries, which wasn't intelligent, but at the end of the day, I looked at it like, hey, we got to win. We got, some teams to beat this season, so it built a mental fortitude. I think abuse is good to a degree if you're able to overcome it and learn something from it.
I did a lot of stupid things. Like I broke the world record in the bench press, and now I can't bench press anymore. And it was my favorite lift. I've had hip operations. I have both elbows reconstructed. I trained too hard. I couldn't stop myself. All that pressure, desire, whether it was installed by myself or from others, to try to fit in, to be socially accepted. And I was addicted. I was bench pressing with shoulder pain. I should have stopped. I couldn't. And so, I set the record and it's done. I can't even lift anymore. I don't squat, bench, or deadlift, because look at Ronnie Coleman. You guys know Ronnie Coleman? He's in a wheelchair. He can hardly walk. He's in pain medications. And imagine putting your body through all that torture, and then you get in your 60 and now you can't do anything.
So one question I have for you then is, knowing what you did obviously has allowed you to create this platform to speak to these things, to talk about steroid abuse. You understand all the intricacies. Do you think that you would have been able to do that, let's say, if you'd kept your natural status throughout your whole career, you didn't break world records, you weren't an IFBB pro, you didn't have all of those accolades to stand on? Do you think you would still be Greg Doucette and have all the following you do?
I do not think so. I think I'm one of those 1 in a million cases that was able to do what I do and actually got the success that I got. But if I look back and I'm really honest with myself, I regret doing these things. I was natural world champion and I was breaking world records natural, so I had the records, but I wanted more. I wanted more glory. I wanted more people to say, you're cool, we like you. And so I ended up taking steroids. I did that because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be sponsored. I wanted a pro card. I wanted to be famous. And it worked. At what cost, though? How healthy am I really?
Everything it is that you're saying, right? I don't feel any ounce of shaming you for it. I think everything that you said is really important, to acknowledge that and to know that and to then share that, right? But the difference is that had someone shamed you, I don't think that you'd feel the same way about it. Instead, people poured life into you and told you hey, I don't think that this is right. I don't think that you should really keep doing this because it's doing more harm.
The opposite happened. I was rewarded. When I started getting popular on social media, I was talking about my steroid cycles. I was talking about what I've done. And they're like, look at your muscles, look at your chest. And it was like, do you know how hard it was to stop? Because I was being rewarded with dopamine, with people saying nice things about me all the time. And for me to stop, I know that my views on social media go down. If I went on a steroid cycle right now, people are gonna fall, wow, Coach Greg, you're back. We miss the old Coach Greg. And so it's hard for me to be the 48-year-old old man that's still preaching fitness when they say we love the old Coach Greg, the jacked muscle freak. And I have to fight the urges not to use steroids every single day because I know I would look better. I know I would feel better, but I'm like, it's not healthy. And so I have to say no.
I get what you mean about the dopamine reward thing, because for me, I have a similar situation, but kind of in the opposite way. Every time I start slimming down, I start getting the, what are you doing? Why are you losing weight? Because I am in that large guy space. Mm-hmm. So it's it's very funny how much on both sides, outward opinions just really, really just make what we do hard. I know that when I am doing more cardio and I'm a big hiker and biker, and sometimes in the summer I'll slim down, but then all of a sudden I'll get a ton of comments from people just being like, we liked you heavier, we liked you this. I'll have clients that'll stop using me because I've gotten too small. And so you're kind of seeking that dopamine, that approval, also that career boost. You get stuck in this loop of doing things that you know aren't good for yourself.
I wanted to hear from you, just going back to the prompt, why you came forward.
Oh, I think obviously professional bodybuilding has its risks. Obviously, I try to mitigate them as much as possible. I work with a company that I'm doing blood work quarterly, every 3 months. I am very, very methodical with what I do, and I'm very, very on the mild side. You would be surprised, but I've been training for 20 plus years. I think that's the key for me. I would say, being this size, 100% not healthy. Is it unfortunate that I am very passionate about something that is bodybuilding? Yeah, it's kind of I fell into it. I love it. It's hard for me, but I made a decision with my wife that at age 35, that's it. I'm done. No more competitive bodybuilding. I have an understanding, but like Greg, I have the foresight to know there has to be a limit to it, because if you just let it go, I would have to be probably 25 more pounds of muscle and have to do things that I'm not willing to do in order to be let's say Mr. Olympia, right? So because all the way through my 20s, I was closer to like 230 pounds, natural all the way until I was like 27 and a half. So hopefully I'll be okay going back to that size.
Do you use steroids currently?
I mean, I use.
I think
that's the biggest insult in the world right now.
No. I only ask because, again, we're on the topic of body abuse, right? So I'm only asking that in that realm because of what you said about it. I'm not asking that.
No, it's kind of like, it's just like when
like
you're
that.
jacked like that and you say, do you use steroids? It's like, you think you can look like this natural? Like if I said, hey, are you on steroids? Look at that body. Like if I said, you look like you're on steroids.
Yeah, people think you're on gear, it's a compliment.
If I said, obviously you're natural, it'd be like, what do you mean, obviously? There's no obvious.
So yes, I'm enhanced.
Okay. It's literally just
You see,
like
he's
the question that I
insecure,
had,
though.
But it's also just like, well, what do you do as you're progressing in that to get to the points that you want? So that's where that question stems from. And I also really appreciate your candor for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I will 100% say like some of the best shape of my life was natural in my 20s, like very lean, probably my healthiest. Like if anybody tells you they're like an IFBB professional bodybuilder, it's almost 99% of them are in some capacity enhanced. It might be very minimally, it might be through the roof, like you wouldn't even believe what they're taking, but it's there, it's part of the sport, it's unfortunate, but like that's the problem. That's one of the problems we talked about earlier with the fitness industry is like, that's the expectation.
Let's bring our disagreeer.
Hey! Good job not abusing yourself.
Yeah, so I took abuse as like doing things that's negative for your health. And for me, I've always approached fitness from a health kind of lens, right? Like Myron, I'm 100% natural. I'm never gonna look like Eric, I'm never gonna look like Greg, but it's something I'm content with, right? For me, I'm kind of in for the long term. I wanna be able to do what I do when I'm 60, 70, 80, 100. Focusing more on the health aspect of it can be a good middle ground, because I feel like if you're looking from the outside in, sometimes can be like, dude, how am I gonna look like Eric? Like, how is this ever gonna happen, right? But you know, people have different goals, I would say, within fitness, and yeah.
I think it's important to also acknowledge that like there's abuse on both spectrums, right? Like you can be a fat ass on one end and say, I'm gonna just continue to eat cheeseburgers and put on TikTok. And then there's the other side where you can, use performance enhancing drugs and say, I'm gonna step on stage. But I would make the argument that the person that is training, using PEDs, etc., I'd respect that individual more than the fat ass. And the reason why is because though it isn't healthy to be on performance enhancing drugs, you're still pushing your body to a level that most can't, versus by just being fat, that doesn't take any skill or dedication. So
what if
I
the
had
fat
to
person is doing something like, maybe they're into quantum physics. Maybe they're changing the way we view the world entirely. Are they not valuable because they're not shredded?
Well, again, we're talking about the purpose of abusing your body. Yeah, I'd have more respect for the bodybuilders. My point.
Yeah, well,
okay.
And I think society would enlarge as well, which is why bodybuilders that like a Ronnie Coleman, etc. Though he is disabled now, etc. He's a legend and he's going to go down in history.
Yeah, but I actually thought that was a good question. Like what a great film director who's like very overweight and like just totally poured into their craft. Like. Is there respect for someone like that?
Well, that's great because he's able to do something exceptional, right? And he's able to diversify himself from the general masses, right? But will people know that when they meet him, that he's a famous director, unless he's very prominent? But yeah, there's exceptional people that are fat in certain regards, but we're talking about body abuse here. I'm just saying in general, I would have far more respect for the professional bodybuilder
than like Peter Jackson's
versus
making multiple like award-winning films.
Was that
Lord of the Rings?
Exceptional happening.
But some guy like taking PEDs is better than that?
two different things, sorry.
No, sorry, I'm legitimately curious.
Yeah.
You have guy using PEDs on one side trying to do stuff, and then you do have like Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings, multi-Academy Award winner.
That's why I was very explicit to say I'm talking about the fat influencers.
Yeah,
so like I'm talking in that context. Yeah. Like if you're gonna have abuse of your body on two different ends, right? One extreme is a bodybuilder, the other is a fat influencer. I think me and most of society would have far more respect for the bodybuilder.
I think he's gonna respect the hardworking billionaire.
I understand that, but I also think that like if someone's abusing themselves in any way, there should be some empathy and like rather than just being like you're a better abuser to yourself than that person.
Fitness culture can be toxic. Agree or step forward.
And that's how I remember Uber Eats has coffee. I remember something about forgetting something else.
Okay, have a seat.
A what?
A seat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So what's been,
Is this having a seat?
No.
Dake.
Here we all are again.
Hey.
Let's hear from the jacked guys.
100%. I think you can perpetuate so many themes that are so unhealthy. Like there's so many images online of people that post in like the best lighting with a pump. That is the societal norm of like what's good, and it even like affects me because I'll see people and I'm like, oh, I look like garbage compared to that. I think that right now it's like there's a lot of misinformation online when it comes to like how to get fit, how to stay in shape, and a lot of people are monetizing it. These like crazy fad diets, like you can't eat certain things, carbs are bad, fruit has sugar in it, so it's gonna make you fat. So like now food is almost being weaponized, and then to be monetized so that you buy their ebook to tell you the exact secret, code in order to lose weight. So fitness is an industry, right? So people are incentivized to say whatever that is to make money. And so it's been harder for me as a coach that takes a more holistic approach to wellness and fitness and saying, hey, it's all about balance. And like Greg's the same way. I know I felt like, I watch a lot of his videos. That is the correct approach to like making a plan that's not super restrictive. So I think that's why, the fitness industry, even being part of it, like is frustrating because there's so much misinformation.
I would say also that there's so much pressure to look like us, and it's causing people to develop body dysmorphia. And so this is a huge problem. So when you swipe on Instagram, you're being shown the top 1% of the top 1%. They all have a six-pack abdominals. Everyone feels inferior. There's pressure. Then that causes a whole host of problems, eating disorders, people feeling like shit. They don't like the way they look in the mirror. And then they keep looking for information. And then what information they're getting, half of it's wrong, like you were just describing. And so where do we go from there? There's no solution.
I think the issue comes from the misinformation and just the lack of keeping things simple. But, we like to have fad diets, go paleo, go vegan, go whatever it may be. And it's like, the reality is the best diet is the one that you can adhere to. And I think we need to let people understand that fitness is a lot more sustainable and easier than people think it is, which is why I make fun of fat people so much, because it really is simple and it comes down to numbers and tracking your calories and being disciplined and going to the gym. This is why I have no sympathy for fat people, because it really is simple.
But that right there is what keeps guys like us out of getting into fitness.
Shouldn't it do the opposite though?
No, no one wants to be told they're a piece of shit.
If I was being made fun of all the time for being short, I'd wear shoe lifts to be taller.
Let me explain this. Like, shaming rarely works, and I'll bring this back to somebody I follow, and I appreciate their content. A guy named Alex Hormozi, and he does a value equation, and on the top side of that equation, you have the perceived value of whatever you're trying to achieve, plus the perceived chance of success. So how likely are you to, achieve said result? And on the bottom side of the equation, you divide by time and you divide by effort. Shaming doesn't work because the value equation is driven by those things. So what I think we need to do on this side of the table is to make those things more accessible. Like you said, providing more value-driven information of like how to achieve a calorie deficit in a more sustainable way. How do you make it so it's not so much time? Because so many people waste time, let's say, doing so much excess cardio where strength training should be the main component. Yeah. So like that's why I think adding value and decreasing time and decreasing the amount of effort is going to give you guys so much more emphasis or ability to achieve the result and more motivation to achieve said result than being like, oh, you're fat, what the fuck? You know what I mean? So that's just my take on it.
Well, it's because the fitness industry overcomplicates it so that they can monetize it. So if
they
tell
is
you,
that their
I got
fault?
the secret sauce. Well, this is why it's important to acquire knowledge and be able to, whether you go ahead and do your own research. And again, it comes back to doing the work, and people get so mad, like, oh, why is this hard? Do your research, look at the studies. There's so much fitness studies out there. There's no secrets. It's just discipline and sustainability over a period of time.
Have you guys ever been confused about how to get and stay in shape based on the information that's out there?
Yeah. Totally. I would never, ever take advice from you. To get that advice or to gain that knowledge because of whatever this disposition it is that you have going on, right?
What's the disposition?
Can you describe it?
I think I just keep it real.
I wouldn't even enable it toxic, but I think it's like you have this perspective about the world around you that I think is kind of really warped, and I don't understand why, and I would like to understand why, and I'm not getting it because you're like, shame is the answer and stuff like that, but
it's worked for centuries.
It's not though. It's why you have so much conflict. It's why we're literally sitting here today having this discussion.
So here's the thing. You operate on what's ideal, I operate on what's real. And the reality is that the world is a much colder and harder place than you think it is, but you want to, people to just understand you and see your perspective and see you as how you see yourself. The reality is the world's never gonna see you how you see yourself. They're gonna see you on how you display yourself to them. And when you are fat, out of shape, etc., the people, and if they don't get to know you and talk to you and have a conversation with you, they're gonna assume certain things. That's just the world that we live in.
Just to dig a little deeper into that, has something happened to you to confirm that observation that you have?
No, I mean, I just live in objective reality, and objective reality isn't as nice as you think it is.
So you're not drawing from a personal experience at all?
No, I'm speaking fairly objectively that these are the conversations that people have behind closed doors, but they don't want to say out loud because for fear of cancellation, for fear of coming off as an asshole, etc. I'm just saying how people really feel, but they're scared to say it.
Coming from whether the fitness space can be toxic or not, the shame attitude has kept a lot of people out of it. I've been doing fad diets since I was 12 years old. I was put on Weight Watchers. I did Atkins, I did paleo, I did everything you could possibly imagine. And not until I started following other influencers that were more proactive based on, I want to be around for my daughter for as long as I possibly can be. I want to give my body the function it needs. Like just that basic mind shift, hey, life can get a lot better if you do kind of focus on your health a little more. Instead of, you're a fat piece of shit, you need to change. To me, I don't know everyone in the fitness industry, but I know for me personally, it totally changed my relationship with fitness when I started realizing that it was a gross benefit instead of a punishment I had to put onto myself for not being disciplined enough. For people like you to maybe respect me, who, again, we don't know each other in reality. So why am I destroying my life so you will respect me one day?
Well, going to the gym and training isn't going to destroy your life.
And it doesn't.
It's going to enhance it, if anything.
But I'm saying,
it's going to enhance it.
But yeah, I do that. I'm saying it wasn't until someone told me about those enhancements and kind of approached it with more of an empathetic way of being that it seemed attractive to me at all to be a part of it.
Does anyone here respond positively to shame?
No.
I think in some ways, I feel like a lot of us can relate to this. Like when we were younger, I wouldn't say it was shame, but I wasn't necessarily like happy with the way I look, and that kind of motivated me to get into fitness in the first place, right? And we're talking, this was like in high school, so I think to some degree, shame that's not put on by others could be helpful, right? It has to be something within yourself that can motivate you.
I'll speak on the shame thing too, because the shame that I guess embodied came from myself. So when I was on my weight loss journey and I was like losing weight, the day that I weigh in and it would, like the scale read 1 pound over, like I would take those pills that make you shit, literally, to like lose that extra pound to see. Like, so going back to the toxic situation, that's where I got fucked up, because I would do things in response to me not getting that positive stimulus to hurt myself ultimately. Do I have therapy now? Yeah, because it's a double-edged sword for sure.
I think shame is good. I think it's a very natural response to inadequacy, and it tells people